Yo, what's up, my fellow immortals, and welcome back to The Source. I'm your host, Russell Nash, and this is the #1 spot for Highlander, the card game. This is the second installment in the new series that I'm doing called Immortal Spotlights, where we take a look at the immortals that are found in the game and we highlight or spotlight the best cards that come in their sets. So I thought the best immortal to do for the second installment of this new series is going to be the original Highlander himself, none other than Connor Macleod. I can't wait to dive into this. I hope you guys are excited. So without further ado, let's jump in and see what the original Highlander himself, Connor Macleod, has to offer. So Connor has a couple of different personas that you can use when you're going to build a Connor deck. So we're going to take a look at both of those right now. So the first one we're going to look at says, you may discard one empathy to ignore the effects of any card played by your opponent that would force you to discard cards from your hand. His power also says you may increase or decrease the size of a hard exertion made by your opponent by 1 for every ally you have in play to a maximum of 3. So what does that mean exactly? It really means that if your opponent is going to be forcing you to discard cards from your hand, if you have any cards that have an empathy colored gem on them, you can go ahead and discard those, and you can ignore the effects of that discard keyword that your opponent is going to be putting on you. Right? And his second power is you can increase or decrease the size of a hard exertion your opponent makes by 1 for each ally you have in play. This version of Connor really wants to utilize his allies, so that way you can be manipulating the exertion size of your opponent. So if you play a super powerful attack and you don't want them to be making an exertion for it, or you put them in a corner to where they have to make an exertion to find a defense, the amount of allies that you have in play is going to greatly affect the size of that exertion, right? So if I have 3 allies in play, right, that means that my opponent's exertions I can either increase or decrease by 3. So, I mean, that's pretty powerful. He's got a very good power for that first persona. Very good. So let's take a look at Connor's second persona. So the second persona that you can use when you're going to build a Connor Macleod deck is not bad as well. It's very good. And it says, if you have no allies in play, during one phase of your turn, you may nullify any restriction effect your opponent has in play, preventing you from playing cards from your hand. So this is a completely different strategy than the other Connor persona, right? So this strategy would be where you're not going to have any allies in play. You're going to be taking use of that power because if your opponent is restricting you from playing a defense from your hand or an attack from your hand, if you don't have any allies, you can nullify that effect. So also a very good power. There's a couple different ways you can build Connor. That's what I really like about it. So let's jump in and check out what are some of the best cards that come in Connor's set are. So the first card that we're going to highlight is called Redemption. This is an edge card, and it says play before making a hard exertion for a power blow or a power block. You can take any unused cards found in that exertion to your hand. This is a really good card. This basically means that instead of those cards going into your discard pile after you make that exertion, you can then take those cards to your hand and choose to either use them or save them for your next turn. Very good card. That's why I threw it in there. It's an edge card. Very good card. One of his best cards. That's why it's in this set of being spotlighted. So very good card. It's an edge card. It's essentially just letting you take those unused cards and put them in your hand so that you can continue using those cards and they're not just lost to your discard pile. Next card we're going to take a look at is a card called Master's Focus. Now this is also an edge card. Now Master's Focus says play during your may do or must do phase. Choose a location, object, plot, or situation in play, or any non-persona card in your opponent's pregame. And for the remainder of your turn, you may ignore the effects of that card. So this is basically a get around, a lot of things. This is going to help you get around a location that's causing you problems, an object, a plot, etc. It's also going to help you get around some of your opponent's pre-games, right? So you can't nullify their persona, but if they have a quickening in play that's saying, hey, dodges will not carry over for multiple attacks, right? So you have to play multiple dodges. This is going to be able to get around that. So it is a Master's card, but it's a very good card. Definitely one of the best cards in his set. So I would definitely take a look at it. It's a very good card. It basically gets around a lot of stuff, including pre-game stuff, which is very strong. That's why I threw it in there. So the next card that we're going to take a look at in Connor's set is his Master's Block. Now this is a defense. Now Master's Block says your first attack this turn cannot be blocked, and you can attack the areas you just blocked this turn. very good card. It covers all of the grids. Wherever your opponent's going to attack you, this is going to cover it, and it's a master's block, right? So in turn, what this is doing is it's making your first attack unblockable, right? So that's very strong right off the bat. You don't need to play any other cards to make your first attack unblockable. The master's block text is doing that for you, right? And you can attack to areas that you just blocked. Also very good, because as you know, in Highlander, wherever you block, you cannot attack to the same areas that you just blocked, but this is going to help you get around that. Definitely one of the best blocks in the game. That's why I threw it in there. Definitely one of his best cards. I would highly recommend taking a look at that. The next card we're going to be spotlighting is Connor's Master's Headshot. Now, this is a great headshot card. Definitely one of the best in his set. That's why I threw it in there. Master's Headshot says you may attack to areas you just blocked this turn, and this attack is a power blow. So card text is making this attack a power blow. It says if you do not play a special card this turn, this attack is a headshot, right? And your opponent's hard exertion size is reduced by 1 during their next defense phase. So right away, if you don't play a special card, okay, you throw this out, you don't play a special card, it's automatically a headshot, right? And it's reducing their exertion size during their defense phase by 1. So if you have those allies in play, you play Master's Headshot, okay, what that's going to do is it's going to greatly affect their exertion size for them to be able to exert to find a defense against this headshot, right? So that's a very, very strong card. That's why it's in there. I definitely highly recommend taking a look at this card. And the card text says as well, it is a power blow. So right off the bat, this card is a great headshot card. That's why it's in there as one of his best cards. The next card we're going to take a look at is a hilt. It's called the Lion's Head hilt, right? So this is a very, very good card if you're going to be using the katana weapon of choice, and that's Connor's preferred weapon, would be the katana. Now, the Lion's Head hilt says you may only include in this card in your deck if you are using the katana weapon of choice, right? So you got to be using the katana to use this hilt. It says if you do not play a special card during your turn, you may make a hard exertion to make an upper basic attack that you play a headshot. That's very, very strong, very good. So that just means basically, hey, I'm going to throw out a basic upper attack. I'm going to make a hard exertion, and that attack is now a headshot. So very, very good. If you're using this hilt, you can use it in conjunction with something like Master's Block, right? So you throw down your Master's Block in your defense phase. Your first attack cannot be blocked, right? Then you throw down a basic upper attack, use your hilt, make a hard exertion, and make that attack an unblockable headshot. Very, very strong. If you're going to use the katana, I would highly recommend using this Lion's Head hilt for Connor. So very good card. Let's take a look at the next one. So now we're going to be getting into Connor's allies, and I chose the best allies I feel that come in Connor's set. And the very first one that we're going to look at and spotlight is called Sarah Barrington. It is a situation, and she's a mortal ally, right? So Connor, if you're using that persona where he takes advantage of using allies to affect hard exertions made by your opponent, this is definitely an ally you want to have in play, right? So Sarah Barrington's text says cost. That's the keyword. Your opponent must make a 3-card hard exertion to ignore, nullify, or remove any of your allies in play, right? So that's very strong right off the bat. Your opponent gains an additional hard exertion to be used only in this way. So if you've got a bunch of your allies in play and you're going to be using those to manipulate your opponent's exertion sizes, you have Sarah Barrington out, right? And if your opponent wants to get rid of one of your allies or nullify it because of Sarah Barrington, they're going to have to make a 3-card hard exertion and then go ahead and try to remove those or nullify them. Very good card. Definitely one of his best allies. I think it definitely deserves to be in this spotlight. Let's take a look at one of his other best allies. This ally is called Connor Macleod, right? So, and it's a situation immortal ally, and Duncan is Connor's pupil, right? So it has 2 keywords in this text of the card, right? The first keyword is discard. Now it says you may discard 1 empathy to play a block against an attack that cannot be blocked. Very strong right off the bat. It also has another keyword, trigger, and the keyword is retrieve, right? It says remove this card and any other copies included in your deck from the game. If you have more cards in your discard pile than in your hand, you can shuffle your hand into your discard pile and redraw from your discard pile. So basically what that's allowing you to do, right? It's 2 different things. You can discard an empathy gem to block an attack that cannot be blocked, like a dirty trick or any other card that's going to make you not be able to block it, right? So you discard an empathy, you can play your block, and you can now block that normally, right? Now, the second effect this card has is it's going to allow you to reshuffle your hand into your discard, but you have to remove this copy and all of the other copies in your deck from the game. But it's a very, very strong ally. It's basically giving you like a redraw essentially from your discard. So if you've got a bunch of cards in your discard pile and you're about to exhaust and run through your endurance, you can remove this card from the game and all of the other copies, put your hand in your discard, shuffle them up, and redraw to your ability from your discard, right? So it's a very good card to have in Duncan's set. Definitely one of his best allies. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. The next ally that I thought was one of Duncan's best is a card called Jack Donovan. Now, Jack Donovan is a situation mortal ally, and it says you may increase or decrease the size of any hard exertion made by you or your opponent by 1, right? So that's also going to play into Connor's persona power if you're using the persona power that allows you to manipulate exertion sizes by the amount of allies you have in play. So Jack Donovan is going to boost that up by 1. Definitely a strong ally to have. Definitely one of his best ones. That's why it's in there. That's why it's being spotlighted, right? It's giving you that extra boost to manipulate your opponent's exertion size for the allies that you have in play. So let's take a look at the next one. So the next ally that I thought was one of Connor's best is Nakano. Now, Nakano is a situation and he's an immortal ally, right? So Nakano's text says you may reveal any hidden attack before playing a defense against that attack. If you do, that attack is no longer considered hidden. So basically what that means is, let's say you make a power blow on your turn. According to the rules of the game, on your opponent's turn, they can make their first attack hidden because you made a power blow. Nakano is going to get around that, right? So you make a power blow on your opponent's turn, they make a hidden attack. Because you have Nakano in play, you can say, you know what, before I play a defense against that hidden attack, go ahead and reveal it, and now I'm going to play my defense. Very strong ally, definitely one of his best. It's going to get around hidden attacks. That's why it's in there. Definitely one of his best allies. Let's take a look at the next one. So the last ally that I thought was Connor's best, one of his best in the game, in his set, is an ally called Sparring Partner. Now, Sparring Partner is a situation mortal ally, right? Now, it says your power blows do an additional point of damage. It's straight to the point. If you do a power blow, it's going to make your power blow do an additional point of damage, right? So that's why it's in there. I thought it was definitely one of his best allies along with the other ones. Very good, very straightforward, very to the point. Now, getting out of the allies, let's take a look at some of his attacks and some of his defenses. Now, the first attack that I thought was one of the best ones in his set is his Killer Precision. Now, Killer Precision is very straightforward as well. It says if you are using the Connor Macleod persona, this attack cannot be blocked or dodged, and it's doing 3 damage. Just straight off the bat, unblockable, undodgeable attack doing 3 damage. It is a special attack, so it can't be played from an exertion, but hey, it is what it is. Very good attack. I think it's one of the best ones in his set. That's why it's in there. Let's take a look at the next one. So the next attack that I feel is one of the best ones that come in his set is a Slash. Now, it is a basic attack because of card text. Now, Slash says you can include this card in your deck in place of a basic attack, and you do not need to include this card in your deck to satisfy your deck requirements, right? So what does that mean? It means that you have to have 9 basic attacks in your deck for your deck to be legal. This attack is restricted to 4, so instead of having all 9 basic attacks, you can put 4 of these slashes in your deck, and they count as 4 of the 9 slots for your basic attacks. Very good card, very strong, definitely one of the best ones in his set. And when you're using the Lion's Head hilt, you can use this slash. It's an upper attack, right? So you throw down your upper attack and you make that 0 card, or you make that hard exertion, and this slash is now a headshot. Very good card, definitely one of his best. That's why it's in there. Let's take a look at some of his other defenses that I feel are the best in his set. So the first defense, first dodge of his defenses is called a counter, and it's a duck. Now, this is a very good defense because of the card text, right? It says you may make a 0 card hard exertion to make your next attack this turn a power blow, right? So just right off the bat, it's a very strong dodge. It's a duck, right? So it covers the upper grids and the middle grids, and it's going to make your first attack a power blow without an exertion, right? So that's very strong, right? So you throw down your duck, your next attack is going to be a power blow without an exertion. That's why I feel like this is one of his best defense cards, along with like his Master's Block and stuff like that. So very, very good defense card. He's got another counter. Let's take a look at that one right now. So the next counter defense card that he has, it's also a duck, and it has different card text. It says your next attack this turn may be played hidden, right? So you throw out this counter, and your next attack or your first attack on your turn is going to be played hidden, right? So that's very strong. Maybe you're going to make a hidden headshot. Maybe you're going to make a hidden power blow. But this is a very, very good defense card. And that's why it's being spotlighted in Connor's set. So I really, really think it's a good card. Take a look at it if you're going to build a deck and kind of choose which way that you're going to go. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Immortal Spotlight for this video of Connor Macleod, the original Highlander himself. Don't forget, we are on the road to 500 Immortals, 500 subscribers. I'm super pumped. I know we can do it. So consider becoming an Immortal today and hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future Highlander CCG content. Be on the lookout for that next video. Don't lose your heads out there. And remember, there can be only one collectible card game.